I want to start out by thanking you guys for always listening to the podcast, sharing online, sharing the YouTube videos, commenting and liking stuff. So I'm sure you guys want some shirts. So I have some Modified Rides podcast shirts. There's the front, got the logos on. Back, the back is all full color print for everything from small to 4X. Shoot me a message. Message me on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Email me, call me, smoke signals, whatever you want to do. Get you one of these shirts. Like I said, everything from small to 4X are $25 a piece. No upcharge for some of the larger sizes. If you need them shipped, they're going to be $10 extra to ship, just because shipping's gotten crazy. But shoot me a message, get your shirts while I still have them. Now, check out the episode. Hey guys, welcome back to another Modified Rides podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Brandon Burrell. Today I have someone that's got a pretty good name in the mini truck world. Has been around for several decades, I guess you would say. I hate to age him at that point, but I am. Today I have John Yoakum. What's going on, John?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good. So you've been in the scene for, like I said, a few decades, hadn't you?
Yeah, it started back in the early 90s, about when I started in all this.
So me and John, we just discussed before we come on, me and John's the same age. So I guess we started about the same time. I was 94, 95-ish or so. So you might have a couple years on me.
My very first mini truck show was 1993, which was in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And that would have been Mini Trucking Nationals.
Well, see, that's the thing is me and Casey Harden were talking about that. They said that this was their 30th anniversary, which would have been 94.
Correct.
But he's like, I swear somebody, one of his buddies has shirts that were before that.
There was two shows.
So how was this the 30th?
Originally there was one show, then they split to two when the two of them got divorced.
But that was not early in the 90s like that. They were still together till late 90s?
I'm trying to remember. No, because if you really think back when Charles Armstrong and them, like when he debuted his truck, probably in the mid 90s, those shows were separated back then, wasn't they?
I was thinking it was later than that because I guess 94 was the first year I went. And I know for the first, what was it? It was over at the Holiday Inn that was on the left side when you're coming from Gatlinburg. Well, then he had it over at the I can't remember the hotel's name that was on the right on the Gatlinburg end. That's where I jumped in the pool during awards and stuff.
Yeah, and it used to be down there close to the Grand too on the other, I guess, the more northern side too. It used to be farther down there too.
Yeah, when all that other stuff was built.
But yeah, I remember when they separated, but then it became two shows. But I still remember we could actually cruise Pigeon Forge at the show, and it was actually way more fun than bumper-to-bumper traffic.
Yeah, I mean, it was still bumper-to-bumper, but I think it moved more than like the rod runs and stuff do.
Oh, no, we could actually get out there and cruise, kind of like Showfest in the earlier years. I mean, we actually could cruise that thing versus bumper-to-bumper traffic.
Well, I know, like, as of recording this weekend's the rod run. I passed a few trucks on the road today, or cars and stuff. But the only bad part is if you're driving after 10 in the morning, you might as well hang it up because you're stuck for the day. So if was that your first taste into the mini truck world, or did you mess with mini trucks before you started going to shows?
That was my first show I'd ever gone to. And that was actually because a guy at work said, hey, you want to go to a truck show up in Pigeon Forge? And he said, it's mini trucks. And we went. No, there was a guy locally that passed me driving a mini truck one time. And later to find out he had 415s in it with a shell on it, Nissan extended cab truck. And that's kind of what bit me on a mini truck right then.
Was you in high school at the time?
I was.
And you grew up in Eastern Tennessee?
I did.
Which is where you're still at now, so.
Yeah, I'm very close to where I grew up. And, yeah, like I said, I had C10. My first truck was actually a 78 C10.
Oh, okay.
And that's what I was driving when that mini truck passed me, an extra cab Nissan, Roger Rabbit on the back end of it.
That screams 90s just telling the story.
Yeah. And like I said, when he passed me in it, loud stereo going, that's kind of made
Like,
me
ooh,
want.
what was that?
Yeah. So that kind of what bit me from the beginning.
Is that so? After the first show, I guess you got rid of the C10.
I ended up finding an S10, sold the C10, got the S10. Funny part is, we decided I wanted it lowered right off the bat. I knew I wanted it lowered, and it actually had a camper shell on it, solid camper shell. So we heated the coals on the front end of it, which that was a mistake. 2 weeks later, we was in there. We was putting spindles and drop coils on it at that point.
Because it rode so good with those heated coils, didn't it?
It did. That was a life lesson at 17-year-old, and so yeah, that's something that we had to. I had to learn real quick. It was better to do it the right way.
Now, I think as long as I've known you, I don't know if I've even known you to have anything other than the S10 you have now, because you've always just kind of worked on everybody else's stuff, didn't you?
I worked on a lot of people's stuff, but I mean, there was other stuff I had that was fixed up somewhat. I mean, I know we took a Chevrolet Cavalier body kit, lowered wheels, stereo, and everything like that. Show fest. Um, back before that, when I was younger, lowered Ford Thunderbird
No.
wheels and stereo and stuff like that. But the majority of that ended up being working on everybody else's stuff. I actually had a bad experience on a truck one time and ended up crushing it in the process. And that's when I encountered Brubaker. And he helped teach me and some other guys that was around at that time. A lot of those guys taught me how to do things the right way versus the wrong way. So there was a lot of fabrication stuff that they taught me.
Well,
That's kind of how that all ended up.
well, I guess so. You're in negative camber. So, what vehicle got you in negative camber?
I had what year was that thing? 91 Mazda
Okay.
that I was working on and never really completely finished the thing. It was never 100% done. I got in with an unfinished vehicle.
What year was
And
this?
2000 I'm trying to remember the year they shut all that off. Is that 2007?
So it was well after like Brubaker had his Ranger.
Oh yeah, this is after the Tacoma.
Okay.
Yeah, the Tacoma was already out. We was working on this extra cab Mazda.
I got a few pictures of that Tacoma.
Yeah. You might have shot some pictures of it there once or twice.
One that kind of, I guess, expanded my, I guess, persona in the magazine world was the one of him dragging on the cop in Whitesburg. So I think that one, I think, elevated what I was doing. I just remember when we got to McDonald's, the trooper that turned around on us that thought he was running. He's like, well, can we put the cuffs on? And the cop did just what he did and threw Brubaker across the hood of the car. He's like, no, I didn't want it to be that serious. I just wanted something for a picture.
Well, a little more realism works better.
So. Yeah, that was a fun shoot for sure. So I didn't realize it was after that. I thought you were always in Camber. I guess because you were always with Brubaker.
I was around for a long time. Yeah. And that's kind of where I got my start, But I never, and that was 2004. That was actually when that was, because I remember that, because in 2007, I actually had a conversation with Courtney where I was considering walking away from everything with that because I had never finished the vehicle that I was supposed to have finished.
And why didn't you finish it? It just didn't go the direction you wanted it to go?
I kept changing it.
Is that the cab that Canup has now?
It is. Okay. It's actually the cab that is the bed. Well, that's one of the beds.
I didn't realize. I thought he just had your cab. I didn't realize he had other parts.
Oh yeah, I believe that's the fenders, the cab, the bed. The doors were suicided. And I actually own the frame again. I actually have just like last year acquired the frame back again. So I now have this stock 4-body drop frame again for an extra cab Mazda.
Are you
And
going to work on it?
well, I've got a standard cab Mazda. And that might be a
Nothing, a
good
little bit of cutting and welding won't fix.
right. It ended up having, independent rear suspension, and it was supposed to go back to a straight axle, and then everything got cut off. And so,
So let's go back. So you had the C10, and then you said you wound up picking up an S10.
correct.
So where did you go with that truck? Since that was your first dabble in the mini truck world.
That one was just lowered. It's something I was building, something I was just working on. I was still young, very young. I don't know. I guess I was probably about 19 about the time I blew the transmission in it, and then ended up getting a Ford Thunderbird and a replacement and doing a big stereo in it, 18, 19, somewhere in there. And it wasn't very long after that I started a family.
Which always slows people down. You kind of have to focus on what the priorities are. So
Yeah. So, which of course you've met my wife Heather. We had our son, very early, and that kind of puts a damper on things from time to time as far as building vehicles, stuff like that.
diapers, new wheels. Like you kind of got to pick.
Yeah, I've got pictures of him sitting back there in the stereo area of that car with all the JL audio, precision power stuff. And I've got him back there sitting right in the middle of that thing. He used to actually love to crawl into it. We kind of tried to drag him back out. He used to love stereos, but he's a little bitty.
So what after the Thunderbird and stuff? What brought the Mazda to bring the mini truck back into your life? How did you decide to go that route again?
Well, I ended up having a truck, like I said, and things didn't go as planned. Would be a good way to put that. And due to some very bad work that I had done, I ended up later acquiring this Mazda from Brubaker, in which we'd already become pretty good friends at that time.
Connected at
And
the hip.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. There's been a few people I've run across here lately. They'd be like, I introduced myself. I was like, yeah, I used to always be with Brewer. Oh, I remember you now. I haven't seen you in years. And
Don't
they'll
judge
say, I
me.
remember this. And that, it's always the two of us. Yeah, because we was always together. But it's just something
So you started working on the Mazda that you picked up from him. Was it already started on at that point?
originally it was bagged, and he had nearly destroyed the frame in that thing from dragging it because that was his daily dragger, is what it was. That he had dragged the front suspension out of it.
And that was you said after the Tacoma?
No, that was still during the Tacoma.
I don't
He
think
had
he
it.
ever aired the Tacoma up ever for anything though.
No, and this Mazda was even worse because he used to drive it for miles on the ground. I have actually seen him drive it across railroad tracks on the ground, sparks rolling off of it as he hit the railroad tracks, not because he hit them, but he was already dragging before he hit the railroad tracks. So yeah, that Mazda lived a hard life, and that's why it needed a new frame built under it.
Gotcha. So
And
you build a full new frame for it?
yes, and that's when it had the independent rear suspension out of it.
What was that out of?
That right there was a Super Coupe Ford Thunderbird, which I ended up using some parts out of a Cobra as well.
Okay.
And yeah, that's the one that we made a copy of my frame that went under Jason Leckvold's Mazda that was on the cover of Mini Truckin'. The blue with the silver flames.
Oh yeah.
Had Mazda with the independent rear suspension and everything in it.
Okay.
That was a copy of my frame.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was one of two frames that we built.
I guess most people use the Thunderbird or the Super rear ends back then for the independent stuff.
Some of them used the Thunderbirds. You seemed like you've seen a lot more RX-7s.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those.
And you used the Supras as well. There's just a handful of the Thunderbirds that I know that went out there, which was almost a copy of the Cobras. Cobra had a lot more aluminum stuff in it. Had a full aluminum third member and everything in it. A little bit beefier axles.
So I guess was it when you were building the Mazda that you got into doing the re-drilling and stuff? Because I guess forever you've been the guy to be known to, re-drill hubs and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of how I got into that. I remember the first guy who ever brought me a set, and I could actually remember that was a Nissan that I did the first. And I think I did a Mazda set the second, and
How did you get into that? You just picked one up and said, "Let me drill holes in it and hope for the best," or
kinda. I was already, of course, I've been machining since I was 17 year old, and
okay,
that's
so that's
another
what
good.
you were doing. It's
Yeah,
like
so
job.
I'm a machinist by trade, and by the time I started that, I'd already probably been doing that nearly 12 years or so.
Okay.
That would be my guess, probably around 12, and it was just a matter of figuring out how to do it and do it correctly and safely. And with everything going on with mini trucks, then I already knew how it was going to be used or abused by a few people that I've seen. I actually seen one guy bouncing his with hydraulics on the front end going down the interstate. I said, dude, you don't need to be doing that down the interstate anyway. That's not safe. But I was impressed that it still held up to bounce up, you know,
Was
50
there
mile an hour.
was there other people that were already doing the re-drilling at that point?
There was a couple others out there, and there was one guy in Canada, there was one guy in Missouri, the one guy in Missouri, and then both of those were doing an excellent job. I just happened to come along and join them, and as they faded off, I continued to do them.
Did you just take one of the ones that they had to try to figure out how they did it, or did you just figure it out on a blank hub yourself?
I figured it out. On the Nissan was 100% how myself and another local machinist figured out how to do it. We actually ended up using Toyota hubs and machined a Nissan spindle to fit the Toyota hub correctly. And some other people had issues that seized bearings because it didn't seal correctly. And that's how the Nissan started. There was only one other person who was out there doing the Nissan or the Mazda hubs similar to what I did, and I kind of went a little bit further with it.
So, for those that don't know, explain what re-drilling a hub like that is done for.
Yeah, to change the bolt pattern from 6 on 5.5 to the 5 lug pattern they wanted, because the 5 lug hole or 5 lug wheels were a lot easier to obtain in the offset that they needed. So that's
Whoa.
really the reason why everybody wanted them, because there's no offset wheels from 6 lug under these trucks that needed a high positive offset.
Like, what was that the 6 lug bolt pattern for? Is it more of a car offset or something?
On the 6 lug, I mean, it's the same as a full size Chevrolet truck.
Okay, so it stuck out too far.
Correct.
Okay.
Everything with offset too far, you'll see that like with the Z71 wheels and stuff like that. That's why people have such a hard time. They can't really tuck them. You change it
Got it.
over to a 5 lug, you can go to a higher positive offset and you can get everything up underneath them without narrowing anything.
So I guess at the time the wheel companies weren't building anything for that,
Correct. And the
but they were
billet wheel
building it for
companies,
5 lug.
yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of cast stuff that you could buy, and the only thing you could do was buy a billet, and a lot of people didn't want to pay for the billets.
Those have been expensive forever. So
Correct.
so
So,
by doing that, it allows you to fit a wheel that would actually tuck and then not have any issues.
correct.
So when you drill, do you have to weld up the other holes, or are there enough metal in those hubs to hold up?
There was enough metal in the hubs to do everything correctly. And
So you could have gone back to a 6 lug if you really decided you wanted to.
I made that statement before, and I actually seen some. I actually think I seen two people do it. They actually went back to a 6 lug and reinserted the studs back in. Um, because the trick on that one right there that most didn't figure out is I actually went through one of the holes,
Ah.
and that's where the issue was. Is most people was always trying to avoid the holes, and I went through one of them and used it as an existing hole.
Now, with you doing that for the front, how is the rear swapped over? Because
Well,
you're not just drums, so you just have to swap the axle out.
no. You could re-drill the axles and drums, or you could swap out, say, to a Toyota rear end, which is really was the best option. I mean, that's the option that I would advise people to go. But if somebody was already bagged and body dropped and they just want to change wheels now, this is a simple bolt-in application at that point,
Yeah.
because
Are
it
you,
was something I was able to do for less than $600 back then, shipped front and rear.
so you still do those on a pretty regular basis now?
No, it's not something that I'm capable, because I don't have the facility to do it anymore.
Oh, okay. I guess that was
So,
the job change we discussed before we come on.
yeah, that was the job change when I left a family business, that I was able to do a whole lot of stuff. That's why I was building big brake kits back then, and doing all the 5 lug conversions and doing a lot of the custom billet parts that I built for a lot of people. That's how all that was able to be done. It's something that I was just able to do on the side.
So it sounds like you need to get you a couple machines for the garage.
That would be nice, but then you get real busy again.
Well, your kid's grown. You don't need spare time anymore, do you?
Well, I don't know. Sometimes you get other projects you need to work on in your spare time.
So I guess that leads to what one of your current projects is the S10. Is it S10 or Sonoma?
It's an S10.
S10. So how did you acquire that iconic of a truck? And explain what the truck is.
That was Courtney Hallwell's S10, and I think the feature came out in 2008 is when it came out. I'd actually known where the truck was, and I decided for our 20, yeah, that would be our 25th. No, that was the year after Courtney died. I decided for our 20th that I wanted to try to find a vehicle to build and make sure that I actually had a vehicle logoed on our 20th anniversary for the Negative Camber's 20th
Yeah.
anniversary.
That was at Slambury that year?
No, that was an LST.
Okay.
And
So that was 15 maybe? 2015? I remember being there.
trying to remember, was that on their 5th? No, that was 2000 and that was 2017.
Oh yeah, okay. That's right. I had the Subaru there then. That's right.
Is that our 25th? It's the 20th. I'm trying to remember.
Phone a friend.
Yeah,
Call
I there's glasses over in the cabinet right there.
wife.
That's kind of making me think, if I had that truck that long, is kind of what I'm. Yeah, yeah. Um,
Well, y'all think you blink and it's like 3 years go by, 5 years go by. It's hard to believe this is my 10th year having a SEMA vehicle. Like, how is that even
okay.
possible? I feel like I just started that.
Yeah, so it was their 25th anniversary, and I decided I wanted to make sure that I had a truck there. And I knew who owned that particular truck, and I had actually tried to buy a few other trucks, and I couldn't find anything, and I felt like that would be the perfect truck to finally have my official logo
Keep
on
it
a
in the
finished
plug.
truck on. So I bought that truck,
Well,
and on
see,
my
if you knew
way,
who had it, were they not showing it? Were they not?
no, the truck was in very bad shape,
Oh, okay.
and
How'd they get it?
he is actually one of the guys who helped build that truck originally when he worked at Devious Customs.
Okay.
And he had bought the truck out of Indiana from the guy who had eventually ended up with it. And that was Jason Johnson's who it is. And he's another guy who's a Negative Camber. And he was living in Richmond, Virginia. And that's where the truck sat at the time.
I
And
didn't realize it was that close.
he's actually closer to me now than he was before. But I'd asked him to sell it, and he declined. And I think I asked him a second time, and he declined. And his wife asked him one night. I was actually in Asheville, North Carolina, working on a truck over there, and on my way home that night,
Must have been Wes's.
it would have been. That would have been his C10. And we was on our way home that night, and he called me, and he said, me and my wife had talked, and And he said, if you're still interested, he said, I'll be willing to sell it. And I said, well, I'll buy it. And so I bought the truck, really only pictures that I had seen to buy it.
Yeah.
And I really didn't know the truck was in as bad a shape as it was until I got there and seen it in person, but that didn't change my mind.
Because the
So,
truck had meaning at that point. It wasn't just some random S10.
no, because it's somebody, I mean, even to this day, I still have Courtney's phone number in my phone. Um, he was somebody that was easily, you could pick the phone up and talk to. He was just somebody that was a friend with a lot of the guys that are in Camber as well.
And I think
And
I've mentioned it on other podcasts. I think that is the one person that gets brought up in 95% of my podcasts. I think all but like 3 podcasts he'd been brought up just because
yeah,
he's had that much of an influence on the industry that we're all in, the scene,
yeah.
whatever you want to call it.
You kind of look at some of the stuff that posted up after he passed away. And I remember he was shooting Brubaker's feature down there for Street Trucks, and Brian handed me the phone, I know the phone, his camera, and saying, here, take a picture if you see something cool. And I took a picture of him, and you can see Brian standing there in his camber shirt, and you see Courtney standing there in his camber shirt shooting a truck. And you see that picture a lot after Courtney passed away. And it was one that just happened to pop up. You see, it's just a lot of stuff like that. Courtney was somebody who was very approachable,
Yep.
very good person. You've met him, you knew him.
Yep. Shot my PRX. So,
I mean, heck, you've been around a long time, just like I have.
he's one of the reasons that when he shot my CRX, I was like, that was one of the first things that kind of got my foot in the door. I'm like, all right, well, I know this guy. I know how this works. I've seen how it happens. I started to get into shooting, and it's like I reached out to some of these guys like, hey, what do you think? Is it possible to get in? Because I guess knowing these people kind of opened the door for me to step in and do that. But definitely, like I said, super approachable. So, did he sell it before he passed, or did it sell
That's a truck
after?
that he had actually traded off to a guy in Texas. And
Okay.
I'm trying to remember the F100, I believe it's an F100 he traded it for. And that's how that happened. And I'm not real sure what happened after the truck left Texas. And the guy he sold it to in Texas, I still stay in contact with him. Me and him had conversations. He showed me a lot of pictures when he had it. And I don't know. I think it bounced around maybe 3 other owners before it became in the hands that it did when it went up north. And I've seen pictures of it, and up there being fixed, it didn't have a good life.
So you knew when you got it that it had to be brought back to life because of whose it was.
Yes, and I did not want to change that truck. It needed to be as close as I could make it. And on the way home, I sent a text to the guy who originally did the interior unit out in California. I sent a text to him and kind of showed a screenshot where he could see in my rear view mirror, and he could see the headliner hanging down. And he said, "Where did you get that?" Because he already recognized the truck by seeing a headliner hanging down. He couldn't even see the truck that good. And but that was Mike Sutton, and I also got another phone call on the way home by my wife saying, "Hey, I'm glad you got the truck. Hurry on home, be safe. And by the way, I just registered you for LST, which was about 4.5 months off."
So she lit the fire under you to get the truck.
Pretty much. I had about 4.5 months to get this truck done.
That was nice of her.
Yeah, it was. That way, it was already registered. It was ready to go, and yeah. So, so yeah, everything was already lit under me, ready to go. So I actually ended up hooking up with some good people that helped me. I really didn't expect to see mold in the interior where water had been standing in the floorboard.
Really?
There wasn't a body panel on the truck that wasn't damaged in some way, form, or fashion.
So what was your process of bringing it back to life?
Uh,
Like, did you have to repaint it all? Did you completely gut the interior?
both. The only thing that's 100% original on the paint is the stripe. The green is new, and the cream is new. And
How'd you
we actually
save the stripe on it? Just taped it off?
yes. And the stripe actually has a little bit of damage if you know where to look. It's still. And I think what happened is the guy had ripped the rear end on it and had ripped the whole tailgate skin on it and had it fixed. And I think when he ripped it the second time, he got mad and threw his keys at it because that's kind of what it looked like. Maybe a set of keys hit the hind end when he
But,
slung keys or something at it. And there's still a little bit of damage right there that I know where's at.
so now there's a Where's Waldo game that we're gonna have to play now when we see it out.
um, but you know, we had somebody else who owned one of Courtney's other trucks. You know, me and him was good friends, and that'd be Tracy Shaw. Everybody calls him Chico.
I saw him this last weekend at Triple Crown.
I heard he was out there.
Miniature Chico now.
Yeah, yeah, he's lost a lot of weight after he had a couple of
Yeah.
things happen, and he decided he wanted to live a lot healthier, and he's gotten a lot better shape.
Oh yeah. I ran into him Saturday.
And so the truck went out there, and as it got taken apart, he called me back and said, "You're going to have to come back." I drove 7 hours out there and dropped the truck off, and the next weekend he calls me back and says, "You need to come back and pick the truck up because now the suspension's broke in it too."
Oh damn.
He said, "Leave me the bed," and so I came back the following weekend, picked the truck back up, and left the bed so he can go ahead and start repairing the tailgate skin, the bed sides.
So Chico painted it?
Yes. Chico is the one who originally repainted that truck for me. And he had Paulie out there, Adam Weinrich, everybody out there helping him as well. And so that's who painted the truck for me. And I had a guy locally who was helping with the interior, and I had a couple little glitches with that, and then we had some issues with the dash. And he's like, "Man," Chico said, "Man, if you just live closer, I'd paint that dash for you." And I said, "Well, that's not stopping me from driving back out there." And he said, "Well, come on." And I think that was on a Wednesday night. So Friday night after work, I loaded it in the car and threw a dash in there and drove out there. And we painted a dash because time was getting to the end right there. We was within weeks of getting the LST at that point. And drove out there and painted a dash Saturday morning. And I think by 5 or 6 o'clock that evening, I was home on a Saturday, ready to start putting the dash back in.
You're probably high from the paint fumes in the car the whole trip
Yeah,
home.
I was surprised it was actually hard enough to actually put back in the car and drive back home with. It hardened enough. So that truck was done in a little over 4.5 months.
Well,
To the
you've
point.
you've upgraded it more since then, correct?
Yeah. How many years did I leave it that way? From 2017, it stayed that way until 22. So I guess for 5 years, it stayed that way. I always wanted to upgrade the interior. That was one of the big things, and I always wanted to upgrade the wheels. There was a different. If you look at the original rendering, that wasn't even the original wheels that was supposed to be on it and stuff like that. There's a couple other things that's in the original rendering, and there's a few of them I actually put on the truck that changed it back to the original rendering. Most people don't notice the cowl hood's not on it anymore. There used to be
Oh,
there
I didn't either.
that was an all steel cowl hood, and in the rendering there's no cowl hood on it. So we changed out the complete front clip on the truck. Had Nick Daly up there in Maryland, is where he's at. He designed and built a whole new front bumper for it. So we did a cut. It was a one-off bumper till he made another one here for another truck here just recently. And so now I got two of my bumpers running around. But I was real happy with how that turned out. Of course, it's got a whole new front clip on it, and interior wheels. The shell was a really odd thing. I decided to buy a shell. I found it on Marketplace there for real cheap. Decided I was going to go get it, and then Friday, right before Thursday, on my way to work, I totaled my truck that I was going to have to haul it back with, and hooked it to a tree and pulled the front end back out, duct taped it together. And then Friday morning, we went and got that shell down there for a real good price, and came back and said, "I don't know if I'm going to use it or not."
With a wrecked truck to go get it.
Yeah, it was a smashed front end. Yeah, but the insurance company gladly took that one. Uh,
So what
but
made you do a shell? Was it on one of the renderings or something, or
no, the
change?
shell is just something that I've seen. I love those big windows on that particular shell. I had no idea I was ever going to put a shell on it. And I bought it thinking, well, if I don't like it, I don't have to use it. I can get my money back out of it easily.
Yeah.
And I don't know, once we put it on there,
It stuck.
it stuck. And I originally said, hey, look, if I don't want it, I can take the shell off. It's not a problem. Until it went to the interior guy. And I was up there with Matt Reynolds there one night, and he said, hey, I'd like to do a little bit more on the interior. So he said, can I do some stuff in the bed? And I said, okay. And I said, that'll be fine. And I said, you'll have to ask my wife, which I was having some medical issues at that time, and she wasn't real sure if I was going to make it or not. And so she was pretty much just letting me go ahead and buy whatever I wanted to at that
She was
point.
spending your money in case you died.
Yes. And she said, well, it's only money. And so we're out there in Baltimore, and he walks out the neighborhood outside the shop and screams out in the neighborhood at 11 o'clock at night, yelling, it's only money. So, so like I said, the truck was up there at a place called Charm City Interior to get the interior done. And everything that was done in the back pretty much was his idea. That's something that I didn't see the rendering of. Like I said, it originally went up there with Eric Folber and Stephen Hansen and Fred Hebron, Chad Gill. I sent the truck back with them at a wedding that they was actually down in Kentucky for, and sent the truck back with them. They took it back up there because I knew I could trust them. It was up there getting the interior done and minor paint work at that point. So, yeah, by Eric Folber. And that's how all that came to be, other
Well,
than
you did some added taillights or something to it, didn't you?
no. Those are still the factory taillights. In the original truck, it actually had all Tesla taillights in it. And I believe those were sponsored by LMC. But no, I never did. I just put the
I
factory
thought you'd had to
taillights.
change something on the rear of it or something to make it.
Uh, when Chico had it, we actually had to split the whole tailgate skin in half. And I should say he did, and replaced half of that tailgate skin because I bought another one and it had to be split and grafted back in. But the taillights are still fine. That's still something that was there originally.
I was thinking
But
they were shaved at one point or something. I don't know why I was thinking that.
uh, but no, they've always been there. And I don't know.
So is that truck something that you'll hang on to, or is that something you see finding a new home down the road because of what it is?
I've had people approach me, and it's not something I've been willing to let loose of yet. So I can't foresee it leaving. When Courtney's mom has approached me and talked to me about it and stuff like that, I said it's safe.
Well,
And
it's kind of cool because, like, most of the time, if somebody buys somebody's vehicle, they're like, "Oh, that's so and so's vehicle. That's not yours." Well, in
mm-hmm,
this situation, somebody's like, "That's Courtney's truck." You just go, "Yep, sure is."
yep. And I tried to keep the integrity in the changes that I wanted to make. I think Courtney would have been happy with. It's something I struggled with terribly when everything got sit down and when we sit down to do all this and decided we was going to change all this stuff. I really did struggle with changing the truck in any way, even though I really thought that's what it needed. It needed a new interior. It really needed the billet wheels on it. It really needed a few little other things, and I didn't know how it would be accepted in the end. I'm glad it turned out the way it did because I
And it
feel like
definitely did.
Courtney would appreciate it still, and it's something that the integrity of the truck is still there. You can still look at the truck and know it's that truck.
I mean, you could have gone back and put any other paint job on it or done whatever, and just would have been at that point another S10. So, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's many people in our scene that if something happened that people would still try to bring their vehicle back. You know, they would be like, "Oh, I'll just buy it, you know, build it and do whatever." But
Yeah,
I
that
because he
truck would have
had
been.
such a huge presence.
It would have been so much easier just to sand down and repaint completely, rather than trying to save what was there.
Yeah,
And but that was Courtney. That
for
was
sure.
something I didn't want to change of his, and that's kind of why the truck originally, or in all honesty, other than the interior, it could be put back to the way it was. And then the interior is something I don't think that it ever should be changed anyway.
No, it looks too good like it is.
No,
And are you done with it now, or you still got stuff to do
I
to
still
it?
have a few things to do to it. Not a whole lot, but I still have a few little other odds and ends to do to it. Otherwise, I feel like the truck it's
I
done.
remember we talked at Mini Nats about some underhood stuff you were looking at.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's something that I'm still wanting to do a bunch of other stuff. That might be a good winter project, but I've got other projects too in the meantime too. I've got a couple others I'm trying to play with.
so that would lead into that. So you said you had other projects with an S on the end.
Yeah,
So I know of one of them. What else are you playing with?
well, like I said, I still have this other Mazda out there. I've got my old frame back, and this is a truck that I used to drive back and forth daily. That I think that would make a real good retro truck. You know, just go back to lowered wheels, nice paint job, something that we would have seen cruising at Mini Nats back in the early '90s.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe I need to slip that frame in it and do something like they did down there in Florida with Tim Gilbert, and have maybe a stock Ford body drop truck still on stock suspension. Who knows? You know, I don't know. I've got that frame. It needs to be used.
Well, look, they're building all these for all these K5 Blazers and C10s and stuff. They're building all these body drop frames on coilovers now.
Uh huh. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I kind of hate if we got rid of our frame jig, seeing all this stuff being built now.
so the other project you have though,
Yeah,
uh,
there is another project.
so it's something that I guess you were going a complete higher level than what it was before. I guess you could say.
It's something that we're gonna make better than it ever was, and still you'll still be able to recognize what it was.
And for those that are questioning it, you're just going to have to wait and see. There's a, like I said, I've seen some sneak peeks, but that we're not going to bring that out on the podcast. So you can just keep tabs on John to see what's what. But I guess the question is, what made you want to do this project? You know, we know what made you want to do Courtney's truck, but what made you want to do this other project?
It really is a truck that I really did like the truck from the get go, and it's something that I admired heavily. So when I had the opportunity to acquire it, I did. Um, but sometimes things change. Um, I can't really give all my secrets away on that one. That one right
Yeah.
there is tough because there'll be several surprises with that truck. There'll
I
be
mean,
several.
what made you pick that one? Because you had liked it, and once you saw it was up for grabs, you said, "I got to have it," or did?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just something that's
Now, are you
sparked my
doing all the
interest.
work yourself on it, or you got it at a shop?
Right now, I've got it with somebody else doing some more work to it.
Okay.
Um, or I shouldn't say I. Let me go back and rephrase that. We have it at somebody else's shop. So I've got other people working on it as well.
Gotcha.
There's there's a lot. There's a lot more. There'll be other stuff unveiled in the end.
I'm excited to see this one after our chat the other day and seeing the sneak peek. I'm definitely intrigued on this one, and I think it's going to be something people's going to be like, "Wow, that's cool."
Yeah.
So now, so are you going to be able to? Are you going to get a 2-3 car hauler at that point and haul everything at one time, or it's
That
going to
right there is where we're kind of trying to figure out what we're going to do at that point.
toter home and a stack trailer? Like, what
Oh,
are we doing here?
that's exactly what I need.
I think we all do.
But I don't know. We're going to have to get some more money on that one. You know, see if the government will fund some more money for us. I don't know.
A new check coming out once a month. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Oh,
So
but
once you wrap this up, I know you said you still got quite a bit of work left on it to bring it where you want it to be. You know, you've got a set deadline that you've kind of put in your calendar.
yeah,
Uh,
on the current project, yeah, we do have a set deadline on where it wants when it needs to come out, when it's going to be done. Um, we'll see. I don't know. I've got other people that's involved in doing the work, and they don't like letting me know everything either. Sometimes they like to keep secrets from me too.
That
Um,
seems to be a negative camber thing. I guess the whole Randy issue,
that was a lot of fun on Too Ballistic.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, we tortured him quite a bit. I actually was up there working on the truck one weekend on Too Ballistic, and I sent him a text, and I said, "You want to see a spy pic?" And he's like, "Man, don't mess with me." And I was like, "I promise, I'm not messing with you." And I said, "I'll send you a spy pic. You want one?" He's like, "Will you please do it?" I said, "Sure." I said, "Give me just a minute." So a few minutes later, I sent him a text with a picture of James Bond.
Almost like how you sent me the thing from, what was it, Mad or whatever you sent me the other day when you sent a spy picture of the
Yeah,
little
yeah,
guy with glasses.
yeah. He called me cussing. Yeah. I told him I was going to send him a spy picture, so that's exactly what I did.
that
Oh,
that truck come out awesome, and it was honestly such an honor to be able to duplicate the cover. And you're a diehard mini truck guy. You've been in the scene. You followed it. What was your view on my rendition of that '93
I
cover of
think
the
it
original?
turned out great. I really didn't think you guys would nail the cover almost identically to what it was before.
I mean, if he would have
And,
found a different bucket, it would have been better.
well, we keep telling you to make the front license plate a little straighter.
Well, see, I
That's
had
what.
to have him put that on because it was on there, but in the feature, it wasn't on it. So I made him take it off for that. I begged him to take his hood off, and he refused.
I'm okay with keeping the hood on. I think it looks better with hoods on. That's why I've always liked trucks with their hoods shut. I mean, they look prettier in pictures.
Oh yeah, same thing. But no, his wife had found the shoes for his daughter that matched. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I said, what consignment store did you go through to find these from the '90s? But the hose, the bucket, the soap placement, like that, to me, to be able to recreate that as close as I did, like I did everything I could to make that what it was. And I feel I did a good job. But to hear people like you that say it come out like I did justice to the original
Oh
does
yeah.
mean a lot for sure.
Oh yeah. It did. Like I said, that truck was above and beyond anything I think it was ever intended to be. That truck was those guys up there up north that did all that. Eric and Chad, Fred, Matt Reynolds, all those guys up there. Man, they went above and beyond. April. Even like the little details she done in the floor mats. It says Too Ballistic right there, the little tags on floor mats
Yeah.
she done on the laser etching and stuff. And it's just, there was a lot of details in that truck, and we couldn't have been happier at how it turned out for him. And I
Well,
didn't
maybe,
have a whole lot to do with that truck. I was just happy to go up there and help when I could.
maybe once you get this other big project done, we can get some photos of it once it's done. So
Sure.
we'll see if we can't find somebody to run it when being a mini truck.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see if we can't find somebody to run that again.
So what's your once you get this next project done, what is your, I guess say, what would be your ultimate goal with what you would want to do? Are you going to build these other ones and kind of sit back for a minute, or do you have other projects that's brewing in your mind?
You always have stuff.
Besides machines to start doing wheel hubs again.
If I can live long enough, you've always got stuff you want to do. I don't know, maybe build a bigger garage this time.
That's I think I'm the same way with that one. I need a bigger one myself.
I mean, if you start doing two or three things and have two or three vehicles like that, and got to have somewhere to put them,
Well, the
so
wife
might
need a
need more
closet.
room.
Tear the wife's closet out, put a separate garage bay in there.
She's never really fussed too much. I think she asked where she's going to park her car in the garage at one time. I said, "You'll have to park it outside next to my truck." And she said, "Well, maybe she needs something in there too." So, so maybe we'll have to do something for her. Have her a big project.
Well, it's like me. The Sierra still stays in the garage, even though the wife's the SEMA build for this year. But I think after we get it back, this week, I think it's going to probably wind up being in there. And once the wheels go on it, I don't think I'm letting her drive it until after SEMA because I can't be in a wheel booth with a curved up wheel. So
Hey, I think she does a good enough job. She wouldn't curb her wheel on you.
Well, she told me the whole time I'm gone driving hers out there, she gets to drive my Sierra. She's like, SEMA vehicle for SEMA vehicle. I'm like, I don't know if it works like that. But she knows she don't do drive-through. She don't do any of that. She'll go in Starbucks instead of
Maybe we
driving.
need to talk her into taking it to a car wash.
I think she knows she would come back and have to find a new place to live when I made it home. So
We can tell her she knows a good guy that can fix it.
I really don't want to have to do that. So, I didn't know if you had any other, projects like your dream build that you'd want to do one day.
I don't know. I guess since the whole thing started when I was a kid, maybe I need to go back and do a C10. Do something back, that's what year did they start making those things? Is that 76, 77 through 87?
It's 67 to 72 and then 73 to 87.
Okay, 73 to 87. The truck that my dad had when I was a kid, he had an 84 and an 87 when he got killed. And then I had that 78 was my first truck. Maybe that'd be a good one to go back to. But man, those things they're getting hard to find. They skyrocketed in price too. But
you see, AMD's got a getting ready to drop a cab for them now.
Oh,
you just need a VIN number.
Nice. Yeah.
I think it's the only part they've not had on the market's the cab. So, yep, now it's time to do one of those.
That means they about make everything for it at this point.
Yep. You got
so who knows? Time. Maybe that might be a good project on the next one.
Next winter project.
That might be a couple winters off. Yeah.
So where do you send people now that say they want the wheel hubs done? You just say, sorry, I can't do it?
That's pretty much how it's had to be. I tried to find other people that I knew that was real good machinists that did stuff on the side. Most of them ended up not being interested, or it's just not something they would do anymore on the side.
Do you have like all the specs saved or something for when you do it again?
It's something that I still have all that stuff and know all the information that I could go back to. But that's a dying truck too. You go back in the 86 to 93 Mazdas and I'm trying to remember, was it 90? I'm trying to think of the hard body they quit making in 97, 90.
Sounds about right.
88 to 90. I don't know. Oh, well, the Nissan hardbody back then, those are dying trucks. It's just something that is now you just see people that need it every once in a while.
Well, it's like I noticed at Triple Crown, the street rods that, or the hot rods or whatever we grew up with, the 30s and 40s and stuff, like those are starting to die off, and it's more of the 60s and 70s that are.
Mm-hmm. You see all the muscle cars in there now.
So does that mean in another 40 years we're going to have all the 2000s and 2010s being rebuilt?
I don't know. It might still be the Chevrolet full-size 1500 trucks, though.
I don't know if they'll make it another 40 years, though.
You go 40 years from now, they might all be electric.
No, I'll still find something that's all. I like a little bit of noise. So.
Oh, I do too. That's not my niche, but you never know how things are going.
We were supposed to have flying cars like 20 years ago, weren't we?
I'm still waiting for them to go. I'm hoping they go nuclear.
Just because you're in that industry?
Nuclear reactors now.
Well, they could. I mean, you just got to invent it.
Well, they're out there. Just nobody thinks it's safe.
If you blow up, you blow up. Whatever. Yeah. You won't know it. So where do people find you online where they want to, if you're going to see any kind of project updates and everything?
For the moment, still just Facebook. I just don't do a whole lot other than that. And kind of like to lay low on that. I didn't really get into doing anything with the Instagram or anything else, or it's just when the next projects come out, they'll be out then. Who knows? Maybe we'll do something else. Maybe we'll do something then.
Well, it's like I swear that when I had Daryl Poe on, I kept swearing that he had an OnlyFans, and he swore he didn't. So that might be where his content's going. So that might be the next go-to.
You never know. There's always the next platform. Do what?
What'd she say?
She said she's willing to start doing a OnlyFans pay with feet and everything like that to help buy truck parts if we need to.
Well, I mentioned this on Darren's podcast. My daughter looked up to try to do that, and she said that you had to do a 1099 and pay taxes, so she
Oh
decided
yeah,
to do it. I'm like, so
yeah.
that's the only reason is because you have to pay taxes? She goes, yeah. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to. She's an adult now. She makes her own decisions. She's got to pay rent, so.
It's still hard to believe she's adult now.
Just turned 24.
Yeah. I'm thinking I still remember her like 6, 8 year old too.
Well, when she calls me, like phone pops up and I just hear her name in my mind. I'm like, oh, she's 11, 12 years old. And she starts talking like a sailor. I'm like, nope, she's not 11 or 12 anymore. She's.
I still remember her running around Asheville. What was the name of the show? Scraping the Smokies?
That was my show. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know. And her being about, 8-year-old, something like that, 10-year-old.
Adam and everybody teaching her how to jump golf carts when I wasn't looking. She literally learned how to jump a golf cart. So
yeah.
I learned you don't leave your kids with your friends unattended.
No, that's a good thing. They learn a lot of stuff that way. Yeah, it's hard to believe she's actually that old.
Yeah, Daddy, look, they taught me how to jump a golf cart. I'm like, y'all did what? And they were like, I don't know what you're talking about. It wasn't me. Yeah, because that first show I did, she was 6. So.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Yep.
I think the first 2 years, me and Brubaker came after. I think we was helping you judge on the show. I know we did judge them one year.
It was at the mall the first year. Then I moved to the Ag Center out here.
Okay, and then we did it for 2 years with you.
Yeah. Yeah, she's still begging me to build her something for SEMA, and I was like, well, if you buy it, I'll do it, but I'm not buying it. So.
Oh yeah.
Not how that works, kid. Sorry.
Yeah. I think it's just that easy, don't they?
I was hoping she would have got to go on with me this year, but now she's moved to Charlotte, got a big girl job. So, she has to work. So
yeah, we still have to pay for those projects. Even when you get help, they're still expensive.
Very. Yep, for sure. So, well, good having y'all, man. Good chatting with you. I'll definitely keep an eye out for some projects. So you can keep me updated on that one that, we're waiting to see. I'm telling y'all listening, when you see it, you're going to be like, that's where that one went. Oh, wow. Like he said, you will recognize it and you will immediately know what it was. So
it's one of those that we can still keep the integrity of it and we'll still have fun with it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I
appreciate you having me.
I guess we're running to you here at a show coming up.
That sounds good.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
All right. See you.